If, like Mike and I, you did cover those years, the last number of them were characterized by a back and forth in the House of Commons that we haven't necessarily seen the likes of since. And that back and forth primarily was between the leader of the NDP at the time, Tom Mulcair, and Prime Minister Harper. Tom is, of course, a CTV News political analyst now, and he is with us live. I think just before, Tom, I get to you, we do have a brand new clip from that speech of Stephen Harper. We'll play a bit of it and get your reaction.
Yep. I was 26, and I was an eager young assistant to the late Member of Parliament Jim Hawkes. Had anyone told me that I would be standing at this podium today for this event, I would have been quite simply in utter disbelief. Now, I know that there are many here who have been looking forward for a long time to my public hanging. And these public hangings, my friends, are humbling for the condemned man.
So, Tom, like I said, you know, when we covered you versus Harper in the House of Commons, there was nothing really quite like it. A real kind of match of the minds and back and forth like none other. What was it like behind the scenes? What do you know about Stephen Harper that perhaps we wouldn't expect you to?
Well, behind the scenes, Stephen Harper is actually a person with a very good sense of humor, and I'm glad that you chose that example to prove that. You don't often know that about Stephen Harper, and you certainly didn't get a chance to see it unless you spent some time with him. He was easy to talk to, and he respected the rules regarding the leader of the opposition totally. He would call me personally, even on a weekend, make sure you get hold of me if something important was going to happen. He wanted me to know about it. There was a convention. I had to keep absolutely, secret about it. I was a member of the Privy Council for that reason. But Mr. Harper was very respectful of the institutions. And I have to say that, Catherine and I got along quite well with him. I remember bringing him a Christmas gift one year behind the scenes of Parliament. He seemed a little bit flustered. Wasn't expecting something from the two of us. And since then, I mean, we talk about yesterday's fireside chat. I was invited just over a year ago to moderate a fireside chat in Toronto between Jean Chrétien and Stephen Harper, and they've become fast friends. I got to spend time with both of them. And again, Mr. Harper's always very generous with the people that he's known in the past, and he's very easy to talk to. I'm very happy to see him there today. I was there watching on French television where I was working today, watching the unveiling. It's getting a lot of very well-deserved coverage, and I think that the portrait is a very good reflection of it.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. I mentioned this with Mike a few moments ago, but that the way in which the speech concluded, which is something that former Prime Minister Chrétien has talked about, but so has Stephen Harper, when they have the opportunity to make comments on national unity and also unity in the face of an external threat in the form of the United States. He basically concluded the speech by calling on political parties, different political parties, to unite in the moment on those areas of significance. What do you make of that?
Bravo, because there's an external threat that we all understand, and we've been living for over a year since Donald Trump was reelected. But there's an internal threat as well in Alberta that shouldn't be underestimated, its gravity. And in Quebec, it's not because we've been through it before in Quebec that it's less serious. But I think that it's time for all political leaders to show strength, not to say, well, we're going to send a message or this or that. No. This has to be about standing up for Canada, one of the greatest countries in the world. We can all be very proud of what we're able to share here together, but we've also got to defend it. I took that away as a key message, and I think that he was quite right.
I wonder also, when you talk about the event that you were hosting with the two of them, when we see that event, that fireside chat last night, when we look at that room and see Prime Minister Carney sitting next to Prime Minister Harper, kind of both of them making jokes, lots of different political parties represented in the room there. I feel as though Canadians will take, and I know it's not always genuine, but it does feel genuine today, will take a lot of solace in, we can't picture that happening in the U.S. right now. How much more protective do you think, how much more protective do you think we are about that part of who we are?
I think that you're onto something very important there, Vashi, and it is genuine. An old friend named Peter Stauffer, who was an MP for years, used to say, how many people have you met in politics that you wouldn't have supper with? I mean, that's the basic test. And the first time I bumped into Mr. Harper was at a lunch that I was having at the same restaurant as him and some of his staff in Montreal, not long after, you know, we had both left politics. Very generous. We took a picture of it, and when I tweeted it out, a lot of people saying, well, what are you doing tweeting out a picture with Harper? I said, well, because we were chit-chatting at the same place where we were having lunch. That's the beauty of politics. You can go after each other because you've got opposing point of view. Always has to be respect for the institutions, for the voters, and for each other. That comes through today, and I think it's a really good message in and of itself.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were in the House of Commons just shortly, like, you know, within a year after the Harper government marks
Yes.
now the 20 years, right, since
Yeah.
2007. When
Exactly.
I've noticed a lot of people who are here in Ottawa right now reflecting on, like, wow, can't believe it's been 20 years. When you think back to that time in politics, what is the biggest change in your view? Like, what is the biggest difference between then and now?
Well, there's not that much difference. But what the big sea change with the arrival of that Conservative Party was the dropping of the part of the name that was progressive. And people weren't too sure. There was some demonization during that campaign that Mr. Harper won in 2006. And he had a lot of... He seemed to have a burden to prove that he was just going to provide a good government with a slightly different point of view on a lot of economic issues, but he was there for Canadians from coast to coast. You gave a couple of examples before. He reached out, tried to speak with Quebec. He worked so hard. I think this is worth pointing out for people who don't realize how hard it is to master a new language as an adult. But he would work on his French an hour a day. He was doggedly determined, as he is on most things, to make sure that his French was really decent. And you know what? It's even good today, because I was listening to him speak French today.
What is I also was remembering a story from back in the day when he was meeting with you, and I think it was a meeting that was supposed to be about Ukraine, but he ended up leaning on your expertise when it came to Quebec and the question of national unity. Did you often have conversations like that about subjects of the day?
Yeah, and those would stay private. You know, that's the magic of being in politics at that level. You get to have conversations where the other person is asking you for something that you know is sincere, and it can be helpful. So of course you're going to share that information. And having spent, you know, my political career up until then in Quebec, I was able to give him some insights, or at least some perspectives on what I had seen in the past, in the hope that it could help. That's the idea. Then you go after each other in the House after that. You know, I remember the very last day. You know, it was the last day before of Parliament before the 2015 elections. And we were like two old boxers just slugging away, throwing each other's best stuff at each other. And when we both sat down, out of camera shot, the two of us just looked at each other and smiled as if to say, hey, that was good.
Well, I'll leave it on that note. That was good, as always, Tom. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All the best, Vashti. Take care.
Thank you. That's CTV News political analyst and former leader of the federal NDP, Tom Mulcair.